you're supposed to say Emily in Paris, but I don't know, even the main actors don't call it that. So. And more so, I wanted to talk about stereotyping, negative portrayals of other countries, other cultures, and yeah, just kind of maybe talk about my thoughts in a more rambly format, in ASMR, obviously. And I'm not French. I'm wearing a French beret today, but that's only because I thought that it kind of fit the theme of, stereotypes and stuff. I didn't buy this hat specifically for this video. I already had it, but yeah. Okay, so one thing that I think is great in quotation marks about Emily in Paris, that in 2021, or in 2020 if you will, because that's when the first season started, we can still have a show full of prejudices and stereotyping, and it shows the hypocrisy of American media a little bit, because obviously the writers, the producers, they thought that this was okay. But the great thing about it is that at least it started discussions about certain topics, and I think that's important, and frankly that's why I'm making this video. I'm making this video specifically because I wanted to talk about one character in the show, but I'll talk about everything in this video anyway. So let's start with the season 1. Now, I remember watching season 1, I was like, what's going on here? Because season 1 is literally like a fantasy. It's so typical to see somebody who speaks English just coming to a country and literally everyone speaks English too, and it's France, so obviously most people can speak English, but still you will face a lot of difficulties, and I thought that they didn't portray that in a very accurate way. On the other hand, I get that it's just how would I call it, meant for escapism, and they don't really, I don't think they really cared about portraying the hardships of a foreigner living in another country. Regardless, I thought that would be very, very interesting, especially the paperwork. The number one most ridiculous thing about Emily in Paris is that Emily never worries about her visa. So yeah, and she never does any paperwork, etc, etc, because trust me, that's a pain in the butt. And yeah, they just glossed over that part completely, so yeah. But anyways, season 1, it felt like a fever dream, I'm gonna be honest, because the way they portrayed France and Paris, or Paris, and the French culture was absolutely ridiculous, and I would say condescending and almost downgrading. I remember watching the show just thinking, wait a minute, what's going on here? Because they portrayed the French as really rude, close-minded, they cannot sustain a monogamous relationship, everybody is sleeping around. There's probably more, these are just stuff that I picked up on, and the way they do stuff is not the good way, I guess. Especially in the beginning, family to lunch or something, and then he's just like, oh, we are afraid of you because perhaps we'll have to work harder. And he says this quote of like, Americans live to work, but Europeans work to live, you know. And I've heard this quote before too, so it's not like he made it up. But the way he was kind of seen as a bad thing was just so ridiculous. Because trust me, objectively speaking, if you look at American working ethics versus European, just the fact that you get, you know, weeks of paid holiday, you don't really have to answer, you know, emails and stuff outside working hours. Well, some people do it anyway, but you know, it's not required of you. And just overall, like, maternity leave is paid. In my country, it's 3 years. In other countries, it's different. In my country, it's up to 3 years. Obviously, you can choose to go to work anyway before. Like, the benefits, you know, the healthcare, like, I could talk about this for hours and hours and hours. Just, yeah, objectively speaking, like, I don't know, maybe America would kind of see Europe as lazy with their work, and Europeans see Americans as insane with their work. Anyways, I'm worried that I'm generalizing a little bit, but from what I could tell and from all different kinds of stories, it really seems to me like the two are very different, but it doesn't mean that one way is better than the other, you know what I mean? Like, it's a different culture. And I've heard so many stories about American companies coming to Europe, and they try to pull some BS that they do with, you know, the employees in America, but it's really illegal here. So in general, like, the culture is different and we have stronger labor laws. So anyways, where I was going with this is just like, yeah, it's different. But from what I could tell in season 1, they really tried to make it seem like, you know, Europeans are just lazy or whatever, and Emily is the real hardworking one, and yada yada yada, and that, you know, friends all bad and America all good and blah blah blah, and it was just ridiculous. So I talked about this for a long time. Now, what I've personally had issues with is that each character of a different, from a different country, is just one big stereotype representing that country. And well, you could see this with the French characters, but also with Mindy, who is Chinese. And by the way, a Korean actress was casted as Mindy, so I thought it was a little ironic, but whatever. You could see this with Alfie, who is a British guy who loves football and pubs, and he hates the French and the culture and whatever. And then you have the character of Petra, and this is why I'm making this video. So I don't know if you're aware, but the character of Petra sparked a huge controversy. Not even in just Ukraine, but literally in other European countries. I don't know if in America too, probably some newspapers also published articles about it. So Ukraine was really, really mad at the way they portrayed her, because she is like a very stereotypical thief who can't even speak English, which, hold up, like, this is Europe, almost everyone speaks English. Just saying. And there's literally no point of her really in being there. And she's there just for like quick laughs, you know. She gets laughed at as being ridiculous. And even the Minister of Culture sent a next to Germany, right? So I'm like still in the middle, but it doesn't really matter that much. And even I have literally dozens of stories from family and friends of being discriminated in Western Europe just because they were Eastern European. Now, I don't know where this comes from. I think it might be just some remnants of the Cold War, because Europe was literally cut in half, and the West really flourished financially with American help, and the East just was stagnant and fell behind. And so you would have a lot of economic, or I don't know how it's called, migrants or financial migrants or whatever, because the countries, they were way poorer than the West. And this even kind of sparked Brexit in some way. Like, they wanted to control the migrant workers coming from, well, everywhere really, but mainly Eastern Europe. And I think what Americans don't really get is the fact, like, this is not a racism problem, because for the most part, like, people are white usually, coming from those countries. It's not that, it's literally just xenophobia. And I'm telling you, like, being white doesn't mean anything. Anything. And I was reading more stories about the experiences of other Eastern European, like, women and men, and a lot of the times they were saying that if they try to complain, no one really pays attention, because it's this mentality of like, oh, but you're still white, so it doesn't matter. And so this specific issue is just not talked about, and I'm kind of glad that the MLM in Paris kind of shed light on something. Anyways, so for Americans to include a character like that just for being laughed at, and to have this stereotypical thief, I think it was just a last straw for a lot of Eastern Europeans, not just Ukraine. Like, I'm Czech and I was infuriated by it. So the thing is, like, Eastern European women either are called prostitutes or gold diggers, and typically in media they're only portrayed as like Russian. It's like, not other countries exist. Well, they chose Ukraine for Emily in Paris, so they get bonus points. But that's where it ends. That's where my appreciation ends. Usually it's a spy, or some kind of mafia associated Russian, or just prostitutes, thieves, criminals, etc, etc, etc. And these are stereotypes so much prominent in American media still, that it's mind-boggling to me. Because at the end of the day, like, where does just because you're from Russia doesn't mean you're a spy or a thief or whatever. The fact that I even have to explain this, I don't know. I'm a little bit done already. But yeah, so just have a character like that, like, it was literally like a slap in the face, because it's 2021, we can do better. And the thing is, like, the American writers and producers, they saw nothing wrong with that at all. Oh, and Petra is not even a Ukrainian name. It is a Czech name. It might be used in other countries too, but not in Ukraine. So they didn't even do a basic research about the character, which is just way more insulting, I guess. Now, don't get me wrong, obviously you can have a character like that if it at least had some depth to her. I don't know, because obviously you have bad people in Eastern Europe as well, but still. Anyways, more about this xenophobia in general. Listen, like I said, my country's in the middle. I can guarantee the more Eastern you are, I guess, the more you'll be looked down upon. like here's the thing, even Czech people don't identify as Eastern European because they don't want to be put in that box. And they get put in that box with everybody else anyway. So it's for nothing, but everybody is just like Central Europe. Well, historically wise, it's still Eastern. Anyways, even like people from Ukraine, Romania, I've seen them being discriminated against here as well. I don't know where this mentality is coming from, if it's still, probably like historically wise, it stems from history, I guess, but still, those countries, like, they didn't do nothing wrong to my country, for example. So, and the funny thing is, well, not funny, but this is heavily promoted by the media. I've noticed a lot, if a Czech man commits a crime, in the title of the article it will be just like a man commits a crime. If it's a German citizen or Slovakian citizen or any other Western European, the title would be like foreigner committed crime. And if it's somebody from Eastern Europe like Ukrainian, Romanian, Bulgarian, etc., they will specifically mention the nationality in the title of the article to spark outrage. It's mind-boggling to me. This happens today. Literally the other day I saw an article like that. I'm not joking, only a few medias do this. But still, it's pretty sad that this still happens. Anyways, also I wanted to mention that a Dutch character was portrayed by a Danish actor. And again, some people were like, I don't know, it was kind of gone. And I wanted to mention that a Dutch character was also portrayed by a Danish actor. And some people were like, they're upset because the nations often get mislabeled. And again, I was reading comments. I didn't know because I'm not Danish or Dutch, but a lot of people were saying that if they say they are Danish, for example, people think of them as, from the Netherlands, and vice versa. So it was kind of like, added misconception. And, the character even says like, oh, I speak many languages because no one speaks Dutch, which, I don't know how I feel about that. It's true that in Europe, because we have so many different countries and speaking different languages, you need to learn other languages to talk with other, people from other countries, doing business with them, etc. So it's totally normal to know a second language or even a third. Some employers started to require a third language too. So I guess it's a bit of a positive stereotype, but it's a stereotype regardless, I guess. Especially like if you know that it's coming from an American writer. It's kind of like I was side-eyeing the writers a little bit there. Same with Mindy in season 1 and her comments for Chinese, because obviously like she's supposed to be Chinese. That would be totally okay. But the fact that it was coming from like American writers is just like, what are you trying to do here, I don't know. Now overall, I feel like, especially in today's climate, people want more authenticity, and they want better representation, regardless of the country, of the race, nationality, whatever. And my first thing as a writer would be like researching the culture and perhaps talking to people who actually live in that country. I have a hard time believing that the writers did any of that, because why would they write such a tragic show if they did their research? I feel like a lot of the characters, they're very one-dimensional, and when I told you that they only represent the country and the stereotypes, it's true, because like I don't even know about maybe. They're more well written than the others. Julian's entire personality is just being gay again, like a huge stereotype. Just, I don't know. I feel like the writers generally have troubles adding depth to their characters. Anyways, overall, did I like the show? I don't know. I found season 1 to be not even like fun to watch, just mind-boggling. And season 2 to me was just incredibly boring. Yeah, I still think Emily is very unlikable, and the problem is the writers are trying to make her likable, which it just doesn't work. Yeah, obviously I'm talking about spoilers now, but yeah, I really hated the storyline with Emily trying to mask the fact that she slept with Gabrielle. Like, what was the point? She's something, you know, and apparently her character is supposed to be 29. She doesn't act like a 29-year-old, I'm sorry. I thought she was 22 at best, but so, yeah, I don't know. Some moments were funny, especially when Emily was just incompetent. That was funny. The rest of the show, I don't know. So, anyways, that will be it for today's video. I hope you kind of enjoyed me talking about these stereotypes and maybe shedding some light on certain issues that usually just don't get talked about, and I thought that this would be a good opportunity to talk about it. Yeah, I guess this is more of a serious video, but I hope you still liked it. Alright, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in